What a day it is to be a Met fan, to be a Knick fan. Oh, man, the sun is going to be out today. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. And here we are getting ready to talk about our two favorite teams.
Yeah.
I mean, how about these Mets, man? Now, listen, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I will say they got back to 500. They sweep the Yankees. Unfortunate weather situations last night for the fans that were at the Citi Field. They had to deal with that lengthy delay, and then the Mets just poured on, and just like the rain. And I'm telling you, and I felt this way. It's obvious how much they missed Francisco Alvarez. We could go over and over and over and over this, but when he was gone, they were lifeless. They were listless. They were leaderless. And it's amazing that a young player that plays one of the most important positions in baseball would take hold as, I believe, the leader of the team, which is fine. Not everybody's got leadership qualities, but the way he plays the position, the way he runs, the way he looks, he's got it. He's got the je ne sais quoi, as they say. You could see it. It's palatable. And I would just say that this is a very, very satisfying way to get back to 500. Now, without getting ahead of myself, they play the Astros now.
Yep.
The Astros, much like the Mets, got off to a horrendous start.
They've thrust themselves back into the conversation.
So both teams are thrusting at the same time. They're thrusting at the same time. They're hitting their afterburners. So this is like the secondary part of the thrust. But when you think about the Mets and their schedule leading into the All-Star break, just so you understand this, because you know me, I like to look ahead a little bit.
You do look ahead.
This is the underbelly of the Mets schedule coming up here. So you have the Astros at home, and then you have the Washington Nationals for 7 games. You have the Pittsburgh Pirates for 4 games, and then you have the Colorado Rockies for 3 games.
Yeah, those teams are some of the worst in the National League. They are below the Mets record-wise. So, yes, this is take care of business situation.
It's baseball, right? It's baseball, Susan. So anything can happen, and we've been disappointed before. But as long as the younger Met players stay in this lineup and bring the energy that they have brought, then I think that now all of a sudden Jerry's his prediction doesn't look so bad.
And that's Rollins' his bet, yes, and that's the more important thing for him. I mean, I think that he would love to be right, but I also think he'd love to win that money that he laid out. But this is one of the things about being a 500 team. They're not as bad as they were at their worst. They're not as good as they are right now.
Well,
it's somewhere in the middle, Boomer. It's called a regression to the mean, and we'll see if and when that happens.
Just a month ago, they were 11 games under 500, May 28th. And now they're back to 500. They've averaged 8 runs a game over their last 9 games. Their offense has been ignited for a lot of different reasons. Their defense has been reasonably good. They've had some timely hitting. Since Mendoza put Lindor at the top of the lineup, things have changed for him. He is actually playing like the free agent he should have been playing like all the time. And again, I still think it's really Alvarez is the key cog in all of this. I just feel like there's so much energy, there's so much expectation, there's so much confidence for both he and Vientos right now. Those two young guys have caught fire, and they're starting. Well, I think Alvarez believed that he belonged here the day that he got here, but Vientos is starting to believe that he belongs here. And he was pissed when he didn't start here, and Greg Beatty did. So
Brett Beatty.
Brett Beatty. This is Greg Brady. It's great to watch. It's great to see. Now, interesting, tale of two stories. Steve Cohen, about a month ago, said he believed in the team. We all laughed. We all talked about the trade deadline. We all talked about trading Pete Alonso and everybody else. And he was saying it's a long season. I still believe in these guys. Obviously, they had the team meeting, and J.D. Martinez said it was the most important team meeting he's ever been in, or the best team meeting he's ever been in. And it was held by Francisco Lindor, who recognized that things were going down the drain. And since that time, things have changed. Now, the biggest change is that Alvarez is back in the lineup. For the Yankees, conversely, on the other side, a month ago, we were talking about them. They're still in first place. They still have 50 wins. I mean, they're still going to be fine. But we talked about, Brian Cashman making all the right moves. Brian Cashman doing the right thing, getting Juan Soto here. They're getting Garrett Cole back. That's like getting a starting pitcher at the trade deadline, all of that nonsense. And now all of a sudden, they have really hit a hard time. I think there's 4 or 5 series in a row now they've lost. I think they've lost 8 out of their last 10 or 8 out of their last 11. They're one of the worst teams in the league right now, but it just goes to show you the baseball season is long, it's arduous, it's up, it's down, it's frustrating. It can be exhilarating at times. We're living through the exhilaration of the baseball season right now as Met fans because we got back to 500 by sweeping the Yankees.
Yeah, and I think that how you get there really is important and where you are in the season and the reasons why. So the Mets winning like this, and you mentioned some of the younger players and Alvarez and Mark Vientos and those guys hitting and being a big part, and Francisco Lindor, who was the highest paid player on the team, being a guy who was actually earning that salary and then beating the Yankees twice in impressive fashion and smacking around their two best pitchers in the process. I mean, that feels different than just a couple of wins against any ho-hum National League team to get back to 500 with maybe J.D. Martinez hitting the home runs, a guy who's not going to be a big part of their future plans. And for the Yankees, it's the opposite of that. The reason why it feels worse, and I'm with you, I'm not going to be the crazy alarmist with the Yankees, but any Yankee fan who's got some anxiety or agita about the team right now is warranted because of the way that it happened. All right, Garrett Cole comes back, looks really bad. Luis Gil, back-to-back starts where he is not any good. You've got Giancarlo Stanton doing his IL stint. You've got Juan Soto, who hasn't hit as well. I mean, the bullpen and Clay Holmes, you're not completely happy about. So it's the way that things are going. And also, Brian Cashman, it's just amazing how, when the team plays well, the general manager is the greatest. When the team plays poorly, the general manager
killing them, man. It's unbelievable.
Is the worst. But yeah, I mean, there's some real concern there. I also think because you've got a team in your division that's right there, that's young, that's energetic, that was in the playoffs last year and has beat you a bunch of times this year in the Baltimore Orioles.
Brian Cashman sucks.
Yeah,
Brian Cashman sucks.
Okay. And by the way, the Orioles aren't playing great right now either. They did not get over the Yankees yet. They're right there with them, but they have not jumped them yet. So a couple things from the Yankees' perspective. Aaron Boone had a meeting. Gleyber Torres, they benched him. Mm-hmm. He got benched, and it's not because he was hurt. He got benched because he was dogging it and he was lazy. And Aaron Boone decided to put his foot down. That's what it looks like to me.
It wasn't the groin then. It was
But to me, that's exactly what the manager should do. So hats off to Aaron Boone dealing with a very unique individual, to say the least, when it comes to Gleyber Torres. As far as, Garrett Cole is concerned, he's going to be fine. A couple more starts, kind of get back into the rhythm of things. Don't be surprised if he has just like a monster second half. If he's healthy and everything's good, he'll have a monster second half. I'm not worried about that. I do think that the Yankees, after Volpe, Soto, and Judge, with Verdugo in this prolonged slump, I mean, what the offense all of a sudden is falling apart.
Yeah, I mean it's a black hole from 5 through 9, or basically 4 through 9 now. With Stanton being out, and it's amazing to go from we're making comparisons to the 27 Yankees to talking about this lineup not being able to hit 60% of the lineup. You have zero confidence in driving in runs. So yeah, I mean, these trade deadlines, and I know that it's redundant, but the way that things are trending for both of these teams, it's going to be fascinating.
Yes,
what they
it will
do.
be.
I mean, it really is, and for different reasons. For the Yankees, it's going to be how all in are they going on this season with potentially Juan Soto being here for a year? Like, are they really going to go for it?
Oh, come on, you have to be.
I think they should. I'm just saying, but I don't know if they will.
I mean, you don't have Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Garrett Cole. You don't have those guys in your lineup if you're not going to go for it.
Right, but remember, the things that they did in this offseason, they were trades. They weren't free agent signings. They didn't really add a ton of salary because, they are always conscious of that luxury tax. So that's still something that's in the back of their mind. So I just, there could be a player out there that's available that they could get that could put them over the top for this year that they're going to be cautious about because we've seen that approach. So that's going to be fun to watch, and obviously what David Stearns does and how much of a contender he thinks that this team is come the trade deadline.
Let's just say in the I don't know, the next 17 games. Let's be realistic and say 11-6 or 12-5. That means
Is that realistic? I mean, I know they played that well, but
you see they're playing.
yeah, I know.
And now all of a sudden you're at the halfway point. You're at the All-Star break, and the team is 6 or 7 games over 500. Hopefully that's the case. I'm not trying to touch the money. I'm just speculating, given who they're playing, that they cannot lose their edge right now. And I don't think they will because it's the Houston Astros. And I'm glad it's the Houston Astros and it's not like one of these other teams that they're playing after the Astros. I'm glad that it's going to be, a good baseball team who's playing good. And, hopefully the Mets can stay at this very competitive level. I mean, this where we are a month ago compared to now, or where we were a month ago compared to now, it's remarkable. Actually,
yeah, it's something I never expected.
Nobody did.
Maybe
Steve Cohen did. Maybe David Stearns did. Maybe the players did. And maybe it was Francisco Alvarez's injury that got the team where it was a month ago. And then all of a sudden now he's been back. And just look at the record since he's been in that lineup.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's amazing, though, that you could point to a team meeting as well that actually works, because it's still really hard to hit a baseball. It's still really hard to get these major league hitters out. And for whatever reason, that locked them in, that got them focused, that got the offense going. And
I'll tell you, sometimes you go in there and you air some things out. All of a sudden, everybody starts paying a little bit more attention to detail. Everybody starts thinking a little bit more about what they can do as opposed to what everybody else is doing. And it goes back to the Bill Belichick saying, just do your job and don't worry about anybody else. You just worry about yourself, and then everything will come together and guys will start showing up. But again, I think it corresponds with Francisco Alvarez getting healthy again. It really does. I mean, you got to be like a dope not to think that, especially with the way that he has played. And you can see how he handles the pitchers and just the way he carries himself.
Yeah, I mean, he was, and the Mets, by the way, I mean, they need to get, Kodai Senga hasn't pitched at all this year. I mean, think about that. That's going to be, you want to talk about an addition at the trade deadline if he actually pitches. But yeah, talking about other guys coming back from injury that could end up helping the team. But yeah, I mean, he hopefully he's one of those guys that we look back on his career and he's got a bunch of Mets records because he came up here early and he stayed here and they signed him and he put 15 years in, and he's just one of those guys that'll come back after a long career and we'll have Francisco Alvarez Day. He's got that type of potential.
He does.
He really does.
I mean, look at he hit one less home run than Johnny Bench did at his age last year.
Johnny Bench.
And we got a long way to go before we start comparing people to Johnny Bench. But
he just did.
Well, the only reason I did that is because they did it on a broadcast the other night. So I'm not bringing something up new that they haven't talked about. I'm regurgitating what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like to think about Johnny Bench and Francisco Alvarez. That would be unbelievable if that would happen. Like if for the next 10 years we had our catcher, and our catcher was an offensive powerhouse as well as a great defensive catcher.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Who's your favorite catcher of all time?
I would say Johnny Bench. I know Johnny Bench. That's why.
Really?
Yeah.
You would say over Mike Piazza?
Well, Jerry Grody, actually.
Okay.
If you really want to go back, I got to go back to Jerry Grody. I'm sorry.
Yeah. To me, it's Piazza. It's got to be Piazza.
I like the John Stearns guy. He was good. But Johnny Bench, I mean, I knew him. That's why. I lived in Cincinnati. I saw, played some golf with him. He's a maniac, but,
Name an obscure Mets catcher. I got a great one.
Obscure Mets catcher.
I got a great one.
Okay, you got one.
Charlie O'Brien.
Oh, wow.
Remember Charlie O'Brien? It's like early, mid-90s, early to mid-90s, had curly hair.
Ron Hodges.
Ron Hodges. Good one out, Eddie.
You got one?
Eddie, you got one out of the 80s there, Al?
I don't. I can't think of who Gary Carter's backup was.
I got another great.
Duffy Dyer.
Ed Hearn.
Duffy Dyer.
Nice. Love that.
Mackie Sasser.
Mackie Sasser.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or number 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Had the big old tobacco in his jaw,
Yeah.
Couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher. Like me in the softball game.
Right.
Yeah.
You
Love
kept
Mackie
throwing it
Sasser.
over my head. I was the pitcher, and you kept throwing it over my head.
Yeah, I know. I was juiced up for that
or
game.
you were dribbling it back. I said, look, just roll it back to me like it's a bowling alley. Jesus.